Okay. We will now start with the second segment of the symposium, and I introduce Christoph Seibert from the Hochschule für Musik to present on the combined collaborative project on the reconstruction of the Barberpole Phaser.
This is Harald Bode speaking. On this demonstration tape, I'm going to give you samplings of the infinite phasing effect. What you hear in this first sample is pink noise processed through the Barberpole Phaser. The Barberpole Phaser is a new multifunction sound modification device. One of its major features is the capability to perform infinite phasing through a special multiple filtering system. It is well known that in conventional phasers, the peaks and notches of the so-called comb filter move periodically up and down in frequency. In contrast, in this infinite phaser, the peaks and notches of its multiple filter move continually in either direction through the entire frequency range. This produces interesting psychoacoustic effects and eliminates the monotony of conventional phaser sounds. In the Barberpole Phaser, the infinite phasing is combined with a number of complementary modulation capabilities to optimize its versatility and effectiveness.
The Barberpole Phaser was one of the last major projects to occupy Harald Bode over a period of more than 10 years. What you just have heard, and I thought it might be a good idea after the lunch break, is the quite uplifting opening of the demo tape that Harald Bode recorded to demonstrate the capabilities of the Barberpole Phaser. He sent these tapes to interested friends and potential customers such as Susan Ciani, Wendy Carlos, Vladimir Usashevsky, and Steve Marshall. Only 3 specimens of the Barberpole Phaser were ever built, making it one of Bode's final and rarest large-scale endeavors. In its design and operation, it draws deeply on elements from his earlier instruments and projects, like, for instance, the frequency shifter. Thus, working on the Barberpole Phaser also casts a retrospective glance at Bode's work as an inventor of electronic music instruments since the 1960s. I present this project on behalf of the many individuals who have contributed, especially Felix Mittelberger of the ZKM archive, Gerd Meyerhofer of SYNTH-Werk, and Andres Kaufmes, a student at the Institute for Music Informatics and Musicology at the University of Music Karlsruhe. His bachelor thesis was devoted to the Barberpole Phaser, and so Andres was the first to catalog systematically the relevant archival documents, and thereby laying a crucial foundation for the present project. The prehistory of this undertaking, a collaboration among the ZKM archive, the University of Music Karlsruhe, and SYNTH-Werk, has already been outlined in Felix Mittelberger's presentation today. Here I aim to offer insights into the project from 3 complementary perspectives. The first perspective is Harald Bode's perspective, insofar as it can be reconstructed from the archival material, focusing on the Barberpole Phaser as a developing project and on the process of its evolution. A second perspective is treating the Barberpole Phaser as an object, a tangible artifact, and examining the instantiation of Bode's vision in schematics and prototypes. Finally, there is the musician's perspective, exploring how artists and performers meaningfully engage with the Barberpole Phaser in the creative practice. In addition to following these three perspectives, I will try to fruitfully frame my considerations within Hans-Jörg Reinberger's conception of experimental systems. Experimental systems, as the working units of research, are arrangements for the manipulation of objects of knowledge, established in order to elicit unknown answers to questions we are not yet able to formulate clearly. With these words, Hans-Jörg Reinberger introduced this term in 1994. Reinberger distinguishes two concepts within the framework of experimental systems: epistemic things and technical objects. Epistemic things are the material entities or processes under investigation that exhibit an irreducible vagueness precisely because they embody what we do not yet know. Technical things are the stable, standardized apparatuses, models, and theorems that enable the production of epistemic things. While technical things function as answer machines, epistemic things generate questions and may in turn become re-stabilized as technical objects. Crucially, this distinction is functional rather than material. Any component of a system can serve as an epistemic or technical thing depending on its role in the experimental context. I propose that the Barberpole Phaser can be understood as an epistemic thing in each of the three perspectives I have outlined: project, object, and instrument, while simultaneously functioning as a technical thing within their respective experimental systems. So first, let us focus on the Barberpole Phaser as the project of Harald Bode. The earliest indication of what would later become the Barberpole Phaser appears in Bode's notebooks from 1974 under the heading of Bode Phasing Modulator. By 1976, this idea re-emerges as the super phaser or infinite flanger, albeit without detailed specification beyond the concept of an infinited phasing effect. Nevertheless, initial implementation sketches and mentions of experiments are already present in the notebooks. In 1979 and 1980, the infinite phaser, he called it in these times, the project gains real momentum, and by October 1980, Bode is preparing patent applications. During this period, he corresponded with Steve Marshall, from whom he received a Marshall time modulator, a device which is quite close to the intentions Bode had to this time, also doing it with another technique. Bode then studied that device, the circuitry, extensively as a source of inspiration, as a competitive device, and as a basis for potential collaboration with Steve Marshall. To now conceptualize the Barberpole Phaser as an epistemic thing, we have to think of aspects of vagueness and indecisiveness. Two principal aspects of indecisiveness can be traced in the notebooks. One concerning the name and identity of the device, and another concerning Bode's evaluation of its sonic quality and market viability. First, let's focus on the indecisiveness with regard to the name, or maybe also the identity. In late August 1980, Bode compiled a list of potential product names for the infinite phaser, including dynamic multi-filter, phi modulator, phase modulator, polyphaser, 3D phaser, surf phaser or surf modulator, and so on. And there are a lot of subsequent entries in the notebooks which add further variations, like surf the miracle phaser, and finally also the Barberpole Phaser. For some time from then, Bode used infinite phaser, multi-phaser, rotophaser, and digiphaser interchangeably. Only from March 1981 onward does Barberpole Phaser become predominant in his notebook, and advertisements begin to present it under that name. Yet even then, the project remains in flux. A 1984 update bulletin, you can see on the right side, describes the Bode Barberpole, or the Bode Barberpoler, we called it then, as an ambience modulator, a rhythmic sound manipulator, a stereo synthesizer, a stereo panner and multi-filter with a variable number of peaks, and last but not least, an infinity effect sound processor, which led to the name Barberpole. So the second interdisciplinary I wanted to identify is regards to Bode's evaluation of the sonic qualities and the market viability. After its announcement in 1981, that provoked some, but not too much interest, Bode expressed concern that the Barberpole Phaser might prove too complex and expensive for the market. He began to contemplate simplified, lower-cost variants, once again experimenting with names and configurations. His own assessments of the device oscillated between self-critical doubt and self-confident optimism. In May 1981, he wrote, "Regarding the evaluation of the Barberpole Phaser, I find myself judging it very critically since I understand its limitations better than any outsider. If I can nonetheless capitalize on the current concept, it is for the same reason the vocoder was initially successful. Outsiders did not share my insight into its boundaries." Just a couple of months later, actually on Christmas Eve, he stated, "Mood report of success. I have a good new product on which to work." When promoting the device, Bode did not shy away from superlatives. In an interview with Jay Lee for the magazine Polyphony in the issue for September and October in 1981, he stated, "Honestly, I believe that this infinite phaser opens a new era. Maybe, I don't know, but I do think it's at least a significant breakthrough in sound modification for the year 1981. And in correspondence with a potential customer, he likened comparing a conventional phaser to the Barberpole Phaser as comparing a horse-drawn carriage to a Cadillac. In sum, throughout its development, the Barberpole Phaser underwent continual changes in name, identity, and scale, driven by aesthetic, technical, and commercial considerations. From the mid-1970s onward, Bode pursued a vision that gradually took shape, yet remained characterized by constructive vagueness. As a project, the Barberpole Phaser thus exemplifies an epistemic thing. Turning to the Barberpole Phaser as an object, it becomes clear that despite promotional materials suggesting a finalized product, no single canonical version exists. Archival schematics reveal at least 4 distinct circuit iterations, and only 3 physical units were constructed. Barberpole Phaser number 1, which Bode himself used in his studio, is now owned by Per Bode. The other 2 are presumed lost. Which of these incarnations should serve as the reference for reconstruction? Here the device assumes the role of a technical thing. Existing hardware, circuit diagrams, and measurement equipment collectively form a stable apparatus within an experimental system. SYNTH-Werk's analysis of unit number 1 discovered deviations from the archived plans. Likewise, Bode himself noted after completing unit 2, which was then offered to Jay Lee in August 1982, "With this device, I have gained a number of new insights that will benefit the final version." The interplay between project and object thus reveals the Barberpole Phaser's dual status as epistemic thing and technical thing. SYNTH-Werk's reconstruction prioritized the aspects most consonant with Bode's articulated vision, exhausting its intended capabilities, while setting aside his proposals for a simpler, more economical model. In October 2024, the first completed realization of the Barberpole Phaser arrived in Karlsruhe. Finally, we consider the Barberpole Phaser as a musical instrument whose significance is realized through individual artistic practice. Although Reinberger devised this framework in the context of protein synthesis, it has been also widely adopted in art reflection and art practice. In a performance setup or studio context, the Barberpole Phaser functions simultaneously as a technical object and, as its affordances interact with the musician's practice, an epistemic thing to be explored. Improvisation and composition were integral parts to Bode's own developmental process. In September 1981, he stated, for example, "It's important from time to time to experiment with the Barberpole Phaser to discover new effects that may prove valuable for a future demonstration tape." And in April 1982, when playing the Polymoog through the Barberpole Phaser, I repeatedly find that the infinity effect emerges more distinctly if the resonance peaks are spread over a wider frequency range. In our Reconstructing Harald Bode project, a group of students from the Institute for Music Informatics and Musicology at the University of Music Karlsruhe, under the direction of Luis Antonius Peña, has likewise engaged in artistic experimentation with the completed device and developed a performance that you will be able experiencing this evening. And on Saturday in the workshop with Gerd Meyerhofer and Uwe Rottloff, you will also have the possibility to engage with the device and to explore it. In conclusion, for the Reconstruction Harald Bode initiative, with its initial focus on realizing the Barberpole Phaser, the synthesis of the three perspectives, project, object, and instrument, is indispensable to a valuable reconstruction. Only by integrating Bode's evolving intentions and visions, the concrete instantiations shaped by aesthetic, technical, and economic factors, and the insights gained through artistic practice, can the Barberpole Phaser be fully apprehended. But this means also, even though the physical realization is now complete, the process of reconstruction remains open-ended, just as Bode himself suggested in the closing words of his demo tape.
It will now be up to you, the performer, composer, and synthesist, to put it to work for records and soundtracks. Hope to hear from you.
Thank you for your attention. Yeah, again, we have a little bit time for questions, if there are some, or comments, or reports from the own lab, like Gerhard could do. Okay.
You said that there were 10 devices built, and the first one was sent to the Hochschule für Musik in Karlsruhe. What happened with the other 9?
This we have to ask Gerd Meyerhofer, I think. So which is now the case, where do the other devices go to?
So far we have produced about 15 units. They are all around the world, in studios, musicians, producers, and we continue to produce them. But we don't produce them like industrial production. Every piece is an individual piece, so we build them by hand.
This may be a question for Gerhard. The Barberpole Phaser that's out in the lobby there in the case, which one is that of the three? And when you were designing the new one, how was that one particularly useful to you to be looking at in relationship to the notebook schematics and information?
First of all, I have to say that the Barberpole project will never be finished. The one I got from you was very, very useful because the Barberpole Phaser from the inside is very complex in terms of schematics and possible circuits. What I read, I found out a lot of new things in the diary from Harald Bode, new ideas he had, and also improvements on the existing circuit. So what I would like to say is the machine we're producing is a mixture between your machine and the things we read in the diaries. So especially there was at the end, or the final parts we read in the diaries, there was a suggestion to do inserts in the feedback loop. And this is a very interesting thing, because when I read this, I found out that, now I understand what he really meant with Klangumformer. It's a whole principle how to use this kind of devices. So what a fantastic thing is, for instance, is to bring the frequency shifter into the feedback loop and change the frequencies, deconstruct the frequencies, deconstruct the harmonic structures in the feedback loop. And this is something we've built in. And so this is more or less the extended version compared to the version we had from you.
What number-wise we say the Per Bode Barberpole Phaser is number 1, and then Jay Lee has the Barberpole Phaser number 2, and then John Shemail has the Barberpole Phaser number 3, but Jay Lee lost his device. It was, I think in one letter it was stolen from someone, and then, but Gerd said he read it was he lost it through a divorce or somewhere. So and then from John Shemail we have no contact at all. We don't know where the third device is and what happened to it. So it's like. So. Okay, thank you. Thank you.